Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a world today that's, well, a bit unsettling, to say the least. The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchison. You all requested a deep dive into this one, and to be honest, I'm a little hesitant to open this can of worms, but I guess that's what we do here, right? Explore even the darkest corners of, what makes us human.
It's really interesting, actually, because what we're doing with this deep dive is taking a fictional world
Yeah.
and using it to kind of understand our own, our reality. This Gardner character with his obsession for like capturing beauty and preserving it, he's not just a villain in a story. He's kind of a reflection of the darker impulses that I think we all have inside us somewhere. That need for control, the fear of loss, those lengths that we might go to hold on to something that we consider precious.
Okay, see, now that already gives me chills. It's like looking into one of those funhouse mirrors. Distorted but still recognizable. So let's get into it. We're dealing with this character, the gardener, who kidnaps women and tattoos butterfly wings on their backs and calls them his butterflies.
It's really important to remember that that act of tattooing, while it seems to be about beauty, it's about control. It's branding, right? It's
Yeah.
claiming ownership, transforming these women into like living art that he can own and control. It speaks to a really sadly common societal issue, which is the objectification of women and how their bodies are controlled basically by those in power.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just like some creep with a weird hobby. It's about how even in our supposedly enlightened world, these power dynamics still exist. These attempts to control women, to define them based on how they look.
Exactly. And the book really explores this through the eyes of Maya, one of the butterflies who manages to escape. Her story isn't just some thriller about survival. It's really about the impact of captivity on your mind. We see how trauma, how it manifests, how someone's identity can break down, and yet how even when faced with something so horrific, the human spirit still finds a way to adapt, to resist.
Right, and that's what makes the stories of the other women trapped in this garden so interesting. They're not just victims, they're individuals, each with their own story, their own ways of coping, holding on to hope. Like Sophia, whose main thing is getting back to her daughters.
Yeah, Sophia's story is really powerful. It really touches on that instinct of motherhood. And that desperation to get back to her children is what gives her the strength to keep going. It allows her to survive something unimaginable, to make compromises that, well, they really challenge, our ideas of right and wrong. It makes you ask, how far would any of us go to protect the people we love?
Yeah.
What lines would we be willing to cross?
God, that's heavy stuff. And it gets even more complicated when you think about like the situation that she's in, where the line between victim and perpetrator gets all blurry. Remember when she reveals that Jilly's father is actually the gardener?
Yeah, that's a real punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And it highlights this chilling reality that the abuse of power often happens in the very places that are supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
Within families, communities, even institutions. The fact that he was able to father a child with a captive woman just shows how insidious his control is and how abusers manipulate and exploit their victims over time.
Yeah. It really makes you think that the monsters in these stories, they're not always hiding in the shadows. They can be the people closest to us, the ones we trust. And it makes Sophia's struggle to protect her daughters even more heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Her story is really like a microcosm of this larger problem of domestic abuse, where victims often feel trapped, silenced, unable to ask for help because they're afraid.
It reminds us that the Butterfly Garden, while fictional, it reflects some very real and disturbing things about our world. It's like a call to look beyond the surface, to question things and see how power can be abused.
And the book doesn't shy away from exploring the different ways the women cope. Like Hope, for example, who uses sex to survive, a way to maybe gain a little bit of control in a situation where she has none.
Yeah, her choice is definitely controversial. It might make some people uncomfortable, but it does force us to think about how complex survival is. In those situations, are there really right or wrong choices? Or is it just about getting through the nightmare?
Yeah, it's not our place to judge what these women do, but to understand the context, right?
Mm.
Hope's story, in its own way, it's a testament to that will to survive, even if it means sacrificing a part of yourself.
And then you've got Amber, who chooses to focus on education, holding on to knowledge as a form of empowerment.
Yeah, Amber focusing on self-improvement. It's a powerful act of defiance. She's refusing to let his cruelty define her. maintaining a sense of self-worth and hope for a future where she can reclaim her life. It reminds us that education can be a powerful tool for freedom, not just in a literal sense, but mentally, emotionally too.
Makes you saying, you can control my body, but you can't control my mind.
Exactly. And that inner strength, that refusal to be broken, it's a thread that runs through all the butterfly stories. Despite what they're going through, they find ways to support each other, to create these moments of beauty and connection,
Yeah.
resisting the gardener's attempts to dehumanize them.
Like the hair braiding rituals you mentioned earlier, it's not just about looking good, it's about sisterhood. It's about taking back their bodies, creating some kind of normalcy and beauty in a world that's been so twisted.
Right, exactly. Those little acts of defiance, they're incredibly powerful. They're proof that the human spirit can find light in the darkest places. Even when faced with unimaginable cruelty, hope and beauty can still exist.
And that's what makes The Butterfly Garden such a gripping, thought-provoking book. It's not just horror. It's about survival, resilience, and the strength of the human spirit.
And as we go deeper, we'll see how these themes play out, how the butterflies deal with their captivity, and how their experiences ultimately lead them to a place of healing and empowerment.
Okay, I'm ready for more. But just a heads up to everyone listening, this is where things get even darker. Because we're going to meet the mastermind behind it all, the gardener himself. And let me tell you, this guy is not your typical creepy neighbor.
No, he's a master manipulator, a predator who uses beauty as a weapon. And his family, well, they're a whole other story that we need to carefully unpack.
Let's just say family dinners at the gardener's house are definitely not a happy occasion. Ready to go deeper into the darkness.
Let's proceed. The gardener's mind, the dynamics of his family, they're key to understanding just how dark this story really gets.
All right, everyone, hold on tight. We're going deep into the butterfly garden, and it's about to get intense.
This gardener, he cultivates beauty, right? But in the most twisted way you can imagine, a man obsessed with control, with possessing and preserving, things that are fleeting, temporary by nature.
Yeah, and his garden is like this macabre reflection of that. It's not peaceful or anything. It's a prison where beauty's like distorted and life is manipulated to fit his sick vision.
And it's within this really disturbing place that we meet the other people in his family.
Yeah.
Each one kind of playing their part in this web of control and manipulation.
Okay, so Lorraine, the gardener's wife, she's involved in his crimes, but there's this sense of fear about her, almost like fragility.
Lorraine's a really interesting character. She embodies the whole idea of being complicit. On one hand, she benefits from all of this, right? His wealth, his power, ignoring the horrible things he does, and she actually helps run the butterfly garden day to day. But then on the other hand, she's clearly terrified of him, and especially of his oldest son, Avery.
Oh, Avery, like a mini gardener in training, but without any of the artistic stuff, just pure cruelty. Remember that scene where he just trashes his playroom? In fit of rage, it's like looking into the darkness growing inside him.
Yeah, that scene's important. It kind of hints at the fact that Avery could actually become even more brutal than his father, destroying his playroom, which is, it represents its innocence, right? It shows he has no empathy. And that tendency towards violence, it's scary. It's really disturbing.
Makes you wonder if the gardener's obsession, that twisted sense of beauty he has, is it a way to channel his darkness, to give it some order? And then you have Avery, who's just raw, uncontrolled brutality.
That's a good point. It's possible that he sees himself as an artist, curating beauty, while Avery is the chaos that he's trying so hard to control.
And that brings us to Desmond, the younger son, the wild card in all this. He's the one who seems to have a bit of humanity, some empathy for those women.
Desmond's the most, I'd say, morally ambiguous character. He knows what his family's doing, but he benefits from it. He's drawn to Maya, sees her as different, and even tries to protect her from his father and brother.
Yeah, like when he brings Maya ice for her arm, even though his father told him not to. A tiny act of kindness, but in that place, it means so much.
But even Desmond's kindness, it comes with this sense of self-interest, right? He's attracted to Maya, so maybe he's just trying to get on her good side, to distance himself from what his family's doing.
Yeah, it does make you question him, right? Is he really trying to help? Or is he just trying to save his own skin? Maybe it's both.
Exactly. He's a study in moral ambiguity. The reader has to decide if his actions can be redeemed or if he's just trying to feel less guilty.
And then there's Maya's escape. The fact that she gets out of that controlled environment with Desmond's help, it really shows how strong the human will to survive is, to fight for freedom. even when it seems impossible.
The escape it's a turning point. The story shifts from being about captivity to the aftermath, from the horrors of that garden to healing and the search for justice.
And it's where we meet the FBI agents, Victor and Edison, who are trying to figure out what happened and bring the gardener down.
Right. They represent the forces of order, trying to make sense of this chaotic, cruel world.
But it's not easy for them, right? These women have been through so much. Their memories are messed up. Their sense of who they are is blurry. And they don't trust anyone, especially not authority figures.
That's right. The agents have to walk a fine line.
Yeah.
They have to gather evidence, but also be sensitive to what these women have been through. They have to earn their trust, create a safe space for them to heal and tell their stories.
And talking about healing, that scene at the hospital where all the rescued butterflies are together again, that was powerful. It's this mix of joy, relief, and then the shadow of what they went through as they try to put their lives back together.
That scene really captures all those mixed emotions. They're free, but the scars are still there. The bonds they formed in that awful place, the things they went through together, the strength they found, that helps them as they try to figure out how to move on.
And even though they're free, the past still haunts them. Remember how Maya doesn't want to tell the agents who she really is at first? She holds on to that Inara Morrissey identity, the one she made up to escape.
That's classic trauma response, you know. Creating a new identity can be a way to cope, to separate yourself from the horror or try to move on.
Like she's building a wall between the pain of her past and the uncertainty of the future.
And to their credit, the agents, they see this. They understand that forcing her to tell them who she is before she's ready could hurt her even more.
They're patient, they get it, and in the end, it's their compassion that makes Maya feel safe enough to trust them.
The moment she says her real name is a huge turning point for her recovery. It's like she's taking back her identity, recognizing that healing means facing the truth, no matter how painful it is.
And that truth, as we find out, is even more awful than the agents thought. The details of how the gardener preserved the women, the fact that he embalmed them alive, it's just unimaginable.
It's a sick way to twist the idea of beauty, an attempt to stop time,
Yeah.
to deny the natural way of things, to own beauty in a way that's both macabre and just deeply disturbing.
Like he's creating his own twisted version of immortality. But it costs his victims everything, their lives, their humanity.
And the fact that he was grooming Desmond to take over the family business, it makes it even more horrifying.
Like a cycle of abuse passed down through the generations. It makes you wonder, can someone like Desmond, who saw and even took part in those terrible things, can he ever really break free from the darkness that's surrounded his family?
That's something the book really grapples with, but it doesn't give any easy answers. Desmond's story is complicated, morally ambiguous, you know. He's capable of kindness, but he was also complicit.
Yeah, he's a contradiction, a puzzle for the reader to figure out. And what happens to him in the end, whether he finds redemption or gets lost in that darkness, we don't know.
And that unresolved tension, that question mark over his fate, it adds to the unease and complexity of the whole book. It's like a reminder that even when justice is served, some wounds might never fully heal.
You know, it's easy to get lost in all the awfulness as we talk about the aftermath of what Gardner did. But I keep thinking about how incredibly strong those women were, how resilient.
Yeah, I mean, their story, it's not just about being victims. It's about the human spirit, how we can survive, adapt, find ways to resist, even when it seems like there's no way out.
Right. Like even in that horrible butterfly garden, they carved out these little moments of freedom, of beauty, connection, things that the gardener couldn't take away completely. Those little acts of defiance, you know, the hair braiding, the stories they whispered to each other, the art they made from whatever scraps they could find. Those weren't just ways to cope. They were acts of rebellion, a way to hold on to who they were when everything was designed to take that away.
It's like they were saying, you can lock us up, but you can't break us.
Exactly. And it's that spirit, that determination to stay human that helps them escape and eventually heal.
And talking about escape, we have to talk about Desmond. He's a tough one to figure out. He's part of those crimes, but he's also the one who helps Maya get out.
Yeah, Desmond's like this living example of nature versus nurture. I mean, he's raised in this terrible environment, surrounded by depravity, but there's something in him, a bit of empathy, a conscience that makes him betray his family and help Meyer.
Like he's caught between two worlds, the darkness he was born into and this chance for redemption. And his choice to help Maya, it's not, just a heroic act. It's this mix of guilt, wanting to protect himself, maybe even a real desire to make things right.
It does feel like he's trying to save himself as much as Maya. But whatever his reasons were, his actions change everything.
Yeah, his betrayal starts this whole chain of events that brings the gardener down and frees the other women.
And then the focus becomes the investigation, putting all the pieces together and making sure those responsible face justice.
The FBI agents, Victor and Edison, they're up against something they'd never seen before. They're not just looking at a crime scene. They're walking into this world of trauma where the victims are afraid to talk, memories are broken, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's a nightmare.
And they have to be so careful with the survivors, knowing that finding justice can't come at the cost of their healing.
Right. It's this balancing act. Getting evidence, but also respecting what these women have gone through. Understanding that pushing them too hard, making them relive everything, could hurt them more.
And the gardener, he's not going to go down easy. He's smart, he's manipulative, he's used to being in control.
It becomes this game of wits, a race against time to get enough proof to put him and his family away before they can disappear or silence the women for good.
And then you have the media, right? The public's obsession with all the horrific details. It's like everyone is disgusted, but also can't look away from the darkness that's been revealed.
The media attention, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gets people talking about human trafficking, the abuse, the exploitation that most people never see, but it can also turn the victims' stories into something sensational, put them under this unwanted spotlight, and hurt them all over again.
Yeah, it's a reminder that justice, even though it's important, can also have these unintended consequences for the people who've already suffered so much.
Yeah.
It's not just about catching the bad guys, it's about protecting the victims and making sure they can heal.
And this is where that theme of resilience comes in again. Those women, despite everything they've been through, they find the strength to not only escape, but to face their abusers, to speak up, to fight for their right to heal and to get justice.
It's truly inspiring. It shows how the human spirit can not only survive, but actually come out stronger on the other side of something so terrible.
And we have to remember that healing isn't, it's not a straight line. There are going to be setbacks, times of despair, things that bring all those bad memories back. But through therapy, through supporting each other, through their own strength, they find a way to navigate it all and come out of the darkness changed, but stronger.
As we come to the end of this deep dive, I keep thinking about the butterfly itself, how it transforms, starts as a caterpillar stuck on the ground, and then becomes this creature that can fly.
It's a perfect metaphor for what these women went through. They were trapped, their wings were clipped, their spirits crushed. But through their strength, their resistance, their escape, they also transform. They come out of the darkness, stronger, more beautiful.
Their scars might be there, but they're like badges of honor, proof that they survived and overcame something horrific.
And their stories, they remind us that even in the worst places, when faced with unimaginable cruelty, the human spirit can endure, it can adapt, and it can find a way to soar.
If this look into the butterfly garden has stayed with you, we really encourage you to read the book. It's a tough read, but it's worth it. It's full of insights into what it means to be human, the power of resilience, and the hope that even in darkness, there's always a way for the light to get through.
And as always, if anything we talked about has brought up any difficult feelings or memories for you, you're not alone. There's help out there, and healing is possible.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the butterfly garden. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep believing in the strength of the human spirit.